Hello, friends. Welcome to Heidi's Colorful Colorado. I'm your host, Heidi, a wife, mom of four, CU Regent, and the founder of Camp Bow Wow and the She Factor. With a passion for keeping the spirit of our state alive and well, I started this podcast to bring the people of Colorado together to celebrate the amazing state we call home. Come along on this journey with me as I travel across our old country roads in my vintage RV, interviewing folks that embody the true spirit of the Rocky Mountains. From the Front Range to the mile-high city to the Wild West of Southern Colorado, we'll celebrate the history, beauty, and Coloradans that make this place the colorful state it is. Each week, you'll meet people trailblazing the way for an even more colorful future for us all, making a huge difference along the way. Are you ready for a Rocky Mountain ride? Let's do this, Colorado. Welcome to Heidi's Colorful Colorado. We're very honored to have Dr. Leiferman, who is the director of the Rocky Mountain Prevention Research Center and also on faculty at CU Anschutz. So Dr. Leiferman, so happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I'd love to start by hearing a little bit about your journey and what got you interested in this field.
Sure. I have been interested in prevention and enhancing public health since I was really young. I've always had a passion for health promotion. And I think through all of my degrees, which my family would say were probably too many, I really honed in on preventing mental illness and substance use disorders, and especially in the last couple decades. And what I found is that we've been trying to strengthen our systems of care, which is great, but there's also a considerable need for doing more prevention in hopes of keeping people out of needing care in this space.
I think in Colorado, it's something that's very top of mind for many of us with the school shootings and recently Boulder and a lot of things that have happened in our community. And, obviously mental health is a key issue around those things. Talk a little bit about what you see in the difference in Colorado, the discussions around mental health in Colorado versus nationally, or what you hear on the national level.
Yeah, that's a great question. In my role as director of the Rocky Mountain Prevention Research Center, it's one of 26 funded prevention research centers by CDC. And it's been interesting to see the increased emphasis on mental illness and the reduction of mental illness and substance use disorders just across the country. The CDC Prevention Research Center Network, historically over the last couple decades, hasn't had a lot of PRCs solely focused on mental health or as their primary emphasis. But more recently, that's changed, and our Rocky Mountain Prevention Research Center was one of the few for this most recent funding cycle that had it as front and center for what we'd like to change. And I think that really comes from seeing the escalation in rates of anxiety and depression across our country. And those were even heightened more so from COVID. In fact, a lot of the issues we were struggling with before COVID have just become more pronounced now. So I think that we're seeing across Colorado this kind of phase 2 of COVID, where we hurried and rushed to respond to this pandemic, and in doing so, that was necessary. And now, as we go into the next phase of opening, we're seeing that many folks throughout Colorado struggled during that time period, and maybe in need of more help, moving forward as we get to our next new normal. So I think, between national efforts and Colorado efforts, I think it's on a lot of people's radar, and we're seeing with the recovery monies, many of them being directed toward mental health, to help with mental health.
Dr. Leiferman, tell us a little bit about, for those of us who aren't research scientists, what does a research study look like around mental health?
Yeah, well, I can share. So our Prevention Research Center has a core research project, and all of the work that we do in the Rocky Mountain Prevention Research Center has a strong community engagement focus, meaning we work closely with communities. And we work closely with communities through all phases of research. So a great example would be, we've been working with the San Luis Valley in southwestern Colorado for close to 2 decades. We have a community advisory board where some of those individuals have been serving for almost 2 decades. And we work closely with this community advisory board to better understand what are the needs in the San Luis Valley. And they did a 1 year of learning and identified adverse childhood experiences as an issue in the valley that they wanted to try to identify ways to address. And so in working with them, we decided we would develop some sort of community level intervention in hopes of addressing ACEs. And what they had found is that people love the valley. The valley's wonderful. They live there. They tend to raise their families there and grow old there. And what they noticed is that there was this intergenerational transmission of adverse childhood experiences happening. So we worked closely with them to design a community level intervention that entails first working with all of the services in the valley that are there for families who experience ACEs, and helping to better understand that care and work on strengthening coordination of care. And then we asked the valley, how can we reach these families who have experienced adverse childhood experiences? And they selected early childhood education settings as the hub, where they felt like that's where the families could be reached. So we work with 16 early childhood education settings in the San Luis Valley. We work on training their teachers to help with classroom instruction to promote social emotional competence and development in kiddos. And we're looking at young preschool children to really help protect them from the environments that they may be experiencing. And then we also offer parenting workshops to promote competence with parents related to problem-solving behaviors with their children and ways to promote social emotional development and competence. And we also have an assessment where we identify families at greatest risk and then help them access care. So that outer ring of services that's available in the San Luis Valley, we help them understand what type of care is available and then make sure that it's equitable and that all families have access.
That's wonderful to hear. We just spent some time down in Alamosa and some of the smaller towns down there with the podcast and interviewed some folks. And they're just, it's such a wonderful, beautiful area, beautiful inside and out. The people are beautiful inside and out. And just had a great experience down there. It's really a hidden gem in Colorado. I think a lot of folks go to the sand dunes, but they may not explore the other smaller towns around that area. So I'm glad you're doing that work. Tell us a little bit about what we can do as parents. I have 3 small children and an older child. Tori's 25, my twins are 9, and I have an 11-year-old. And coming out of COVID, it does seem like there's this underlying anxiety about what it's like to get back into society, back playing sports, back to school, and they're kind of getting thrown right back into it. Are you seeing any issues around that, or why are kids struggling with this transition? It seems common sense, but I'm sure you have some insight into that.
Yeah, I think we've all been exposed to a traumatic event coming off the pandemic. And so as we adjusted to kind of shelter in place, now we're having to readjust, right, to getting back out there and getting more connected. And that can be exhausting. It's interesting because we know that the more connected you are, it's actually protective of your health, right? So it's therapeutic. Connection is good. But we adjusted to connecting maybe more through a computer and not face to face. So, there's going to be a time that each person will probably experience it a little differently. But to be patient and supportive as a parent, as your child navigates that, I think some children may embrace it a little bit more so, and others may not. May take a little bit more time. So just, I think, being patient, having open conversation around it. And I also think for for promoting child mental health. It's parents taking care of themselves. We have a campaign that we're working on to have people really be thoughtful of their well-being. We know that there's certain activities adults can do that protect their well-being, enhance their mental health, and prevent risk of mental illness. So in the School of Public Health, we have a population mental health and well-being master's program that actually trains practitioners to develop programs in this space. So one of our missions in our center is to continue to develop programs with communities, get messaging out so that parents know how to take care of themselves first. Basic self-care activities to promote their own well-being so they can be the best parent they can be.
Goodness gracious, it's been stressful as a parent, and I've had a lot of help and support. My parents live nearby and have a lot of good friends that have helped, and we've kind of banded together to support each other. But if you don't have those support mechanisms, what are a couple tactics that you can do as a parent to self-care right now?
Yeah, well, we're promoting this campaign. It's called Pause for Your Wellbeing. Basically, we know that if you are active, so national recommendations around activity are 150 minutes of moderate physical activity. This can be walking. It doesn't mean you have to go to the gym. You can get this in with gardening, just light activities that you can incorporate into your daily lifestyle. And then we've also known a lot about mindfulness, this increasing your sense of awareness. I think today, in today's world, we have a lot of information coming at us all the time to, take a breath, be mindful of what's right around you. We have some trainings that are very quick, 1 or 2 minutes, that kind of help you start thinking about becoming more mindful, being present in the moment. We also encourage just unplugging. So, taking a break, getting off the treadmill, if you will. Sleep, making sure you're getting adequate amounts of sleep. Very important. It's restorative. It helps you manage your stress. And the last one is maybe not as mainstream right now, but it's expressing gratitude. Just every day reflect on what you have to be thankful for. There's strong evidence on all of these strategies and that they promote well-being. They reduce risk of many physical chronic diseases. So they don't cost a lot of money. They're easy to do. It's just restructuring the way you set up your day to incorporate them.
Yeah, I think working moms are really struggling or have struggled with this whole COVID situation, with first having to figure out online school while we're working and taking care of our, family, and then now trying to get back into the workforce. I mean, it's summer right now, so we're still dealing with the kids at home, but working moms seem to have been hit pretty hard. Is there anything specifically for them that you can suggest, or a website they can go to do some of these trainings?
Yeah, we did quite a bit of work during the pandemic especially with pregnant women and women in the first year of postpartum. This was a tough time for them. And in the interviews that we did with women, they really desired, just more connection and supports because they were pretty isolated during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I think for all working moms, making sure that you have those supports, that you're, again, going back to the self-care is super critical. We have a website that I can get you information to that has a lot of these trainings and everything that I've talked about here, and more information if you'd like to share it.
Yeah, great. We'll put the link with the podcast when we put it out. Tell us a little bit about your connection to Colorado and why you like it here or live here.
I came to Colorado for the first time on a ski trip when I was 12. and I said to my parents that I would live here someday. And Colorado has just been a special place in my heart since that trip. I was fascinated with the fact that I could ski and then come back and be outside in t-shirt and shorts. The trip happened, in that magical time of spring in Colorado. And so, I think I think that Colorado, just the beauty of it, and the people that reside here really appreciate the beauty. They value, being outside and being connected to nature, and all of those things are important to me.
That sounds very Colorado. That's a great answer. Is there anything you could think of that's the most Colorado thing you've ever done, or something kind of outrageous that you've done that people would resonate when they think of Colorado?
Oh, I don't know if it's outrageous, but I think people would resonate with, hiking Long's Peak. It was the first 14er I did in my 20s. And, the first one you do is always something that sticks with you.
Yeah, I think it's always shocking how hard it is to do a 14er. It sounds great in theory, like, oh, I'm just going to hike up to the top of the mountain. And it's like rock climbing, and then you have dehydration, and then the storms roll in, and it's always an adventure, Well, Dr. Leiferman, thank you so much for joining us for a bit and talking to us about mental health and your work. You're such a great asset to our community, and we appreciate everything you do. Any last minute thoughts around mental health in Colorado and places we can go or things we can do to take better care of ourselves?
Oh, just carve out the time for yourself every day. Little steps add up. But thank you, Heidi, for having me here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today on Heidi's Colorful Colorado. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And definitely follow me on Instagram to keep up with my latest adventures. In the meantime, happy trails from me, Heidi Ganahl.